Hi, Alex.
Waiting with bated breath.
Waiting for bated breath.
Oh,
We
here's
should
Noelle.
Oh. And Muller in the car taking dog to vet or something. She probably.
Hi, Emma. Thank you so much.
Hi, Manuel, are you all right?
Hi. Yeah. Pet isn't so good, but I'm okay. Thank you. Welcome. Hello, everyone.
Hi.
We probably won't see you, right, as you're in transit.
Yeah, not for the next 30 minutes at least, but
No problem.
I'll be back
No
home.
problem.
Thank you.
No problem at all. Right. Well, we should probably get going in case the others. Well, they'll join us if they're going to be joining us. Otherwise, we'll send them a recording. So let's get going. So thank you everyone for joining us this afternoon or this morning if you're in California. Really exciting topic. AI. I was in a session yesterday about AI and healthcare, which was also super exciting. So there's lots going on. And I just thought there's so much to talk about. Why don't we get everyone together and talk about it together? And in particular, hear what Matt's got to say on the matter, as I think the West Coast is a little bit more advanced in implementing AI than we are over here, from what I can gather. And Matt is here, Matt Cooper. I introduce. He can say more about himself in a minute, but he's here to tell us all about the AI side technically, and also from his experience of bringing AI to 360. So perfectly placed to guide us through what might be possible and to really facilitate that discussion. So the intention of the day is to have an open discussion about what's possible. We've got a few slides to just feed into the process in case that helps, and we'll clarify some terminology and things like that. But before we go into any slides or anything like that, perhaps we'll just do quick introductions round everyone. What would be great to know is what organisation you're in, what sort of role, location, just something that positions you, in our global flag, and any particular question or issue you've got in terms of AI. If not, that's fine. But we'd love to know who you are and where are you speaking from. Who wants to start? I'm going to go down my list. Karen, you're next, and you tell. You pass the baton to someone, Karen.
Oh, that's a good idea. So I'm Karen Smith. I think most of you know me, have worked with me over the last few years. But just for anybody that hasn't, I'm Client Operations Director at Talent Innovations, working alongside Elva. I'm really intrigued to hear how you guys think that AI might be able to help with the sort of products and services that we're offering. How can it really add value, and how you might be using it now? So it's a really learning session for me today. I am based in Buckinghamshire, down slightly further south to our York colleagues. So that's me. Let me hand over to Emma Sarney.
Hello, I work for Cranfield University as an assessment and development officer, mainly in the Cranfield executive development part. So we use the 360s in our sort of senior leader development programs. So yeah, I'm just really interested to see where AI might go with regards to the 360s.
Who do you want to pass it to, Emma?
Brian.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I'm the Strategy and Legacy Director for a company called Yellow Yo-Yo, and we are helping Elva and Karen and Ian at Talent Innovations grow their business. So I'm particularly interested in how and what Matt's got to say for this, and how we can integrate AI into TI's systems. We're beginning to use generative AI throughout all of our processes, so it'd be really fascinating to hear how it can be integrated into 360. And I'm going to pass it on to Richard Lockett.
I'm glad you passed on to me quite early, because I'd start losing track of who had not spoken. Try and get away with that quite quickly.
It's a test, Richard. It's a test.
I've failed. It's like one of those memory games where they look at the town. I've forgotten it all already. So I'm from Leeds Building Society, so financial services. I work in very much the leadership and development space, so talent management and leadership, largely in the behavioural space. So we use 360s across a large portion of our population, and particularly to support development programs and individual learning and development. I guess from an AI point of view, we're very early days with how we might use AI, and I guess working for financial services, we're very sensitive about how we bring AI in, and I think that won't be uncommon to a lot of people. So we're very early doors with AI. We're probably only using it at the moment to extract things from AI rather than putting anything into it. But I'm interested in how data analysis, particularly in AI, so rather than for me, AI would be really good rather than having to trawl through tons of data that come out of 360s. How could AI potentially enable us to understand what the data is saying without us having to read 5,000 reports?
Sounds like a good plan, Richard. Who do you want to pass it to?
Well, let's go to Tracy.
Tracy.
There you go. Half an hour later, I managed to find the microphone. I'm not used to Teams. So I'm Tracy Stead. I'm a freelance leadership development consultant. I do a lot of 360 feedbacks, but together with Steve Joy, who's also on this call, we run a quite fairly big 360 program for research fellows all around the UK. And in terms of the 360, and I'm based down in near Bath in the southwest of the UK. In terms of AI, I've only really used it in a very cursory way. So just getting it to summarize data and sort of create bullet points from a load of mess that I've copied and pasted in. And so really just tinkering around the edges. And I use a bit of generative AI in, just generating, really basic things, generating emails and things. So just really curious to see where you all think it might be heading, and then I might know more than some other people for a change about AI.
Yay!
You never know. A bit backwards. Who has Heather?
Hi everyone. Thanks Tracy. Hi, I'm Heather Stout. I'm based at the University of York. I'm the People and Organisational Development Manager, and I'm here with one, maybe two of my colleagues as well. We use 360 in our programs, and my foray into AI has been much like the others. It's kind of getting information, kind of what can it tell me rather than putting anything into it. I got quite excited about the idea of using AI in the development of videos, especially when we don't have case studies, but it's still the kind of interface between someone and how it might use I'm just really curious as to see how this might go. I hear lots of things and I'd just like to see where it goes. So yeah, that's me. I will pass on to Stella, if that's okay.
Thanks, Heather. I'm also in York. Yay! I probably can wave for you out throughout the window. I'm not far from the university. So I work with Richard at the Leeds Building Society. Richard's in our Leeds office, as you can see, and I'm working from home today in York. Same team, so we look after leadership, talent and performance management. The 360s that we have at the minute are mostly around our behaviours, the society behaviours, and around our leadership expectations. AI, I could almost say zero experience on AI. I know the letters, I can spell it, and that's probably as far as we're going to go. So yeah, I've got a lot to learn about it and what it could potentially do. So I'm all ears. I'm going to pass to Alex.
I'm Alex. I work at Talent Innovations. I'm the product owner of Talent Pro, so it's my job to basically decide what we build on our 360 platform. So I'm interested to hear the sorts of stuff people are looking for in AI products that we might be able to offer. I'll pass to, I think Katie's not spoken yet.
Thank you, Alex.
Thanks, Alex. I'm Katie. I'm another person in York. So I work at University of York in the same team as Heather. I'm an occupational psychologist and work as a development partner, mainly using 360 for leadership development programs at the moment. I'm really interested in how AI can be used to scale up potentially what we provide. And maybe linking into what Richard said around putting stuff into AI, I'm interested in how we protect data when using new technology. Okay, I'm going to pass on to Steve.
Thanks, Katie. Yeah, so I'm Tracy's colleague from the Future Leaders Fellows Development Network. But I also, my day job, as it were, is that I work for the University of Cambridge. We don't really incorporate 360s very much in a lot of our programs because I work with research staff and we have 4,000 of them. So I guess I'm wondering about whether AI might help address issues of kind of scalability with 360s. We get a lot of demand for it, but we haven't really found a way of running it at scale that we can afford as an institution. So I guess I'm curious about the possibilities of AI in that regard. Oh, wow. Who do I go to now? Manuela?
Oh, you passed the test so far, Steve. Yeah. Manuela, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm so sorry. Speaking to the vet. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead. Where are you calling from, Manuela?
Oh, sorry. I'm calling from Turin, Italy. My name is Manuela, and I work for the United Nations System Staff College, and I've been collaborating with Science Innovations for 4 years now.
At least.
Yeah. Very fruitful collaborations. I'm really happy. And the focal point for the 360-degree assessments and executive coaching services that we use in our programs. The UNSSC is the United Nations agency mandated with the training and learning of the UN staff worldwide. So we run a lot of programs and learning with a lot of 360s and other assessment tools and a lot of executive coaching as well. So we use talent innovations extensively. Yeah.
I'm very happy we are to work with you too, Manuela.
Yeah, my pleasure, really.
Very good. Anything to say about AI?
Oh, me? I'm not a good person to talk about AI because I sort of resist AI a little bit, although it's being sort of forced upon us a little bit, especially in the training area. I don't personally use it, but I know that there is a strong push for us to start using AI, and we've done a lot of trainings already with AI experts, and therefore I thought that, despite my personal resistance to AI itself, it would be actually interesting and a good conversation to have with my colleagues if we could, include it with 360 assessments and see what we get. Actually be, a competitive advantage for us. So be useful, yes.
Super. Thank you, Manuela. And I think Robin is the last.
Hi, yeah, sorry my camera's off. My internet's playing up a little bit today, so I think that's probably the best way forward. So I work for Lloyds of London, so financial services again, in the leadership and learning team. So again, kind of seems like a very similar space to Stella and Richard. We don't use 360 a great deal at the moment. We do a program called the Extraordinary Leader 360, and we were looking at how we might use 360s in our management population as well. So just kind of, I guess, on the outskirts and interested to see what everyone else is doing And in terms of AI, again, very similar to many of the other people on this call, kind of used it to draft comms and that sort of thing, but we're very slowly integrating it into Lloyd's as well, because it's obviously quite risk averse. So at the moment, we've got kind of limited capacity to play with it, but I have had a little tinker.
Very good. Very good, Robin. Thank you. And Matt.
Lost the mute button there. Hello, everyone from San Francisco. So thank you for the brief introduction earlier, Elva, but can give a little bit more color. So my name's Matt Cooper. I'm one of the founders and CEO of Encore AI, where we're using AI to help with qualitative 360s, and we're partnering with Talent Insights to see how we might be able to help out on the kind of qualitative open response data side, bringing AI to make insights from that a little bit easier. I started my career in the AI research world, so early days of researching some of this generative AI stuff at Brown University 10 plus years ago, before anyone was talking about it, and frankly, none of it worked at that point. And then spent my early career working on AI for self-driving cars at a few startups, eventually at Tesla Autopilot. Kind of got the whole Tesla experience, got to learn AI from some very smart people, got screamed at by Elon Musk in front of all my colleagues.
Did you?
Really? Oh, yeah.
Was that one of those learning moments, was it, Matt?
Oh, yes. I don't know that I particularly learned anything from that, other than I don't want to work for Elon Musk.
That's what you learned. You learned now's the time to resign.
A useful insight, Matt.
Indeed. But kind of found my way into this world because my mom is an executive coach, has been telling me my whole life that she does these qualitative 360s for her clients, finds them super, super valuable, but spends way, way too much of her time combing through interview notes, trying to pull out themes, quotes, different things from these pages and pages of unstructured text data that she has. So I happened to be visiting her for the holidays a little over a year ago, and she was doing one of these 360s in the next room. I heard the annoyed sighs and decided to start asking questions. And so my team and I are research buddies that I met back at Brown. We've been working on this full time for about a year, have been mostly focused on how do we bring AI to qualitative interview-based 360s, but obviously talking to Talent Insights about how can we integrate into the great 360 platform that they already have to help out with the qualitative open response feedback side of things. And also, how do we bring that to getting better qualitative insights across teams. So if you have all of this open response, unstructured information about each member of the team, can we roll that up into interesting insights about the team as a whole?
Or even the organization, the culture,
exactly.
for instance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Super. Very good. Excellent. Can I just ask, sort of raise hands or something, how many of you use, you're referring to it as qualitative 360 processes, aren't you, Matt? By which you mean interviews face-to-face or virtual that are then written up. Anybody use that?
It could also be surveys that have open response text that aren't just
surveys
kind of 1 to 10
with
ratings.
open text. Okay. Yeah. Who here uses interviewing 360s? Anybody? Not particularly. No. It's a bit more of an American thing. So we like our structure over here. So, that's my take on it. Having worked in the world of 360 in America, we do like our structure over here, and so we usually have a survey as an underpinning. Yeah.
I'm curious if anyone is using other types of assessments like psychometrics, Hogan, other things like that.
Yeah. Hands up who uses other psychometrics? Yes, almost everyone. Yeah, and I know Manuela does. Yes, Robin's put her hand up as well. So yeah, we all do. Yes, good. Well, look, let's kick into the slides and let's see where we go. Let's see if I can find them. They were just there. that look like a slide to people? Yes, good.
I can see it.
You can see it. Very good. Excellent. So, oh, look, there we are. So various things we're going to cover, looking at what might it do, what can't it do, what might be the benefits. Let's talk about that. You know, what are the insights it really might allow us to see with incredible ease. I noted that several of you are saying, how can AI help us scale up? I'm absolutely sure it will allow us to provide a 360 type of process to everyone who wants it, because it'll just bring the costs right down. Exactly how that looks, that's what's not clear right now, and that's I guess what we're starting to create here and now. We're going to see Matt's going to demo his system so you can see how that works, and so that gives you a really clear idea of what's possible right now, and what we, you know, and therefore it might help us think about what could we usefully do with our current tools, or for any completely new tools or approaches that we might want to trial and design, have a go at. And let's talk about the practical applications of AI in the whole world of feedback interpretation. That's the world we're talking about. And we definitely want to cover off some of the ethical considerations and the security considerations. Definitely some of the issues. So yes, so we've got human intelligence and artificial intelligence, and what we're really talking about here is a merging of the two, and to provide a whole new space of augmented intelligence. I mean, I don't know whether that's a terminology that we're going to end up with, but I love that thinking. It's certainly my experience of working just with, you know, ChatGPT on my daily work, is it allows me to accelerate my creativity. It allows me to generate more ideas at a press of a button, and it's just extraordinary. And it takes something to know how best to leverage it and how best to guide it, but it certainly allows us to operate a whole other level. And 360 is well, you know, just a presence what we're all interested in, which is, you know, what we get with 360 is we get to see a range of different perspectives on an individual, in order to understand very clearly that, then usually we're wanting the individual themselves to understand, but sometimes it's other people need to understand it, for the individuals themselves to really understand the nuances of their impact on other people, on the organization, on the team, so that they can develop and transform and move forward. Because we're not able to see ourselves clearly in a normal world. We can only see so much. We have our blind spots. We cannot possibly know what everyone is thinking about, what they prefer from us or what they need from it. There's too much to know. We can't know it. We don't know it. So there's this world that's not currently visible to us. And certainly where I'm coming from with 360, I love the fact that 360 allows us to see more of the world that we're actually operating in. And where we've been concentrating is really allowing people to see this data and this information in a way that supports them working out, okay, well, I wonder why that might be, where does that come from, what's that about, what in a supportive environment and process, so they're not upset, they're not overly challenged, they're not you know, they're not told off, it's not a Tesla experience where they feel like they're told off for doing things wrong. None of that. So I guess it's not just about allowing people to see truly how they impact others. It's not about just straightforward honesty. It's about them understanding it in a constructive fashion, so that they can really do something with that and be empowered and reassured, and, you know, their mental health is looked after, and it's a responsible process. We're not going to be irresponsible with it. So but there's lots of data involved in a 360. So I remember in 1999, I'd just come back from America. I had 2 years working in America, and the internet was a new thing at that point. People were starting to have emails. That's really how it was. And the idea of doing a 360 online was a completely new idea, completely new. People were filling out booklets in psychometrics with personality surveys and 360. It was all on paper. And I came back from the US thinking, great, we can put it online. I think this is going to be so much better. It's going to be, we can scale up. We can scale up, and everyone can do 360. We won't have to be mailing booklets. And then I got to the UK and everyone was going, oh no, people aren't going to be honest online. They're just not going to. And what about the data security issues? So there was just all this trickiness. But we worked it through, but it took a while. But in a way, I feel like we're sort of there, and we don't quite know where this is going. But 360, because it's got the range of perspectives and like lots of data, therefore, can end up being generated in it is really well positioned to actually benefit from AI, perhaps more than an ordinary personality questionnaire, for instance. Let's just, I'm going to hand over to Matt here because I'm not the one to talk about this. Matt, you're the expert in this area. Talk us through what is generative AI compared to AI? Talk us through this.
Sounds good. Yeah, I think it's helpful to set the stage with some of this terminology, and also feel free to jump in and interrupt me at any time. I'm happy to field any kind of random AI questions that you might have. But AI is kind of, especially over the past few years, become this really overloaded term where AI is really something that we've been using more broadly for many, many years, right? We've been using AI and computer vision systems to automatically read postcodes on letters since the mid 90s, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of these systems have been around for a very long time. And over the past year or two, it's kind of come to be synonymous with the smallest circle here, generative AI. So when you hear people talking about AI now, there's a 90% chance they're talking about these newer generative AI systems that are all based around a kind of particular architecture. They're all machine learning systems, which means there are AI systems that don't learn at all, that they're kind of hard-coded programs. If anyone's ever played a video game, the other characters in the video game are AIs that are very simple, that just have hard-coded instructions. But these machine learning systems are really things where you're feeding in examples of data and they're getting smarter based on the examples that you feed them. And it's really over the past couple of years that we've figured out what is the kind of architecture of the system that we can feed so much data through that it gets as smart as it has, right? So we finally figured out how do we build a particular system that we can basically give all of the text on the internet is how these new systems are trained. And that's what generative AI means, is they're trained by trying to generate what they expect the answer to be. And you can kind of see this clearly if you use something like ChatGPT, where you type in a question and it literally generates the answer in front of you. You're seeing it spit out word after word. That's actually how it learns as well. So you feed it a web page and it tries to generate whatever the next word is. And because you have all the information on the web page, you can easily say, oh, that next word that you generated was either the correct word or it was totally wrong. And the system learns based on that. So it gets a little bit more likely to predict the correct next word. And if you train it on all of the web pages on the internet, all of the text data on the internet, many, many times over, it gets very good at predicting, okay, based on the words I've seen so far in this sentence, here's the most likely next word. And these systems are really just, they're good at doing that over and over again to produce a coherent thought, right? So that's what generative AI is at its core. They're these like next word predictors. And by nature of having been trained on so much data, the ability to predict that next word makes them pretty smart at a lot of tasks. So it's kind of the intelligence in these systems is honestly pretty surprising. and kind of this emergent behavior of just being able to predict whatever comes next in a sentence. But that's what most people are talking about when they're talking about generative AI. And even across different applications that you see today, so image generation, video generation versus just chatbots like ChatGPT, they're all using basically the same technology. But instead of, for images, instead of predicting the next word, you're just predicting the next pixel in the image, basically. So all of these systems are basically the same architecture. It's called a transformer if you want to be technical, if you want to impress your friends. The transformer architecture is really the thing that enabled this wave of generative AI.
Do you want to go through some of the other language pieces, Matt?
Yeah. And kind of with that grounding of like, what is AI that we're talking about in general, there are a bunch of other terms that you will probably hear thrown around. Natural language processing is kind of the broader field of generative AI that we're looking at. And NLP has been around for a long time. I'm sure if you have an iPhone or an Android, you've had that little predictive keyboard that will try to guess what next word you're going to type. And that's been out for 10 or 15 years now. Just very basic versions of it that didn't use this really advanced AI. But natural language processing is basically, can we take in this unstructured text data and make sense of it in a reasonable way? Large language models are the most recent application to natural language processing. And that's what, when I say a transformer is a particular type of large language model. And the real advance here was that they're architected in a way that we can make them truly large, like way, way bigger than would be able to fit on your computer. They have to live in these giant data centers. That's why everyone's spending many tens and hundreds of billions of dollars trying to buy these huge data centers and build them, is because these models are truly huge, really need to hold a lot of data. But that's what allows them to be able to process all of the data on the internet, hold all of that intelligence that they're able to gather from that. So large language models are the particular kind of instances of AI that we're working with. Conversational AI is probably the interface that you are most likely to have used with a large language model. So if you go to chatgpt.com or claude.com, any of the new AI applications that are where you can kind of chat back and forth with an AI, there's a large language model that's kind of sitting behind the scenes on a server somewhere. And the conversational AI is really just that interface where you're sending some text, it's shooting it over to the model in a server. The server is predicting what the next words are and then putting it back into your experience. And this was a big kind of interface breakthrough for ChatGPT a couple years ago. And this is what caused it to kind of blow up, is because having a conversation with these things kind of makes the intelligence apparent to a lot of people in a really accessible way, right? You're able to say, hi, hello, carry on a conversation with it, ask it about some interesting things, and it feels really intelligent.
And it's really fast, Matt, isn't it?
It's really fast.
Unbelievably fast. How?
And that's because
how does it do that?
That's because they're sitting on these huge servers behind the scenes, right?
Yeah.
If you tried to run one of these things on your laptop, first of all, you wouldn't be able to store all of the model weights, except for the very small ones. And even if you have a small large language model, it's kind of a jumbo shrimp oxymoron, but some of the smaller ones you can fit on your laptop, and those run fairly slowly, depending on what machine you have. So it's kind of a miracle that they're fast in the interface that you're working on. But that's why people like compute is such a big kind of political and technical topic right now. And there's this term you'll see thrown around called prompt engineering. And this is basically the science/art of how can we get these conversational interfaces to actually tell us what we need to know. And there is a lot of kind of black magic of how you talk to these AIs, what ChatGPT wants to hear versus what Claude wants to hear, because they all think in slightly different ways. What amount of context do you need to give it about the task that you're trying to provide? And there are little tips and tricks here, like At the start of when you're asking it a question, you can say, imagine you are an expert executive coach with 60 years of experience who has done 1,000 360s. And just telling the model to put itself in that mindset actually gets you much better results. So there's all of these weird little hacks that we call prompt engineering to get the best results out of these chatbot interfaces. What I'm really interested in and what we're building at Encore is kind of beyond the chatbot interface, how do we make these tools useful for very specific workflows like coaching, like 360s, that where chatbots aren't like might get you part of the way there, but aren't really the intuitive interface to use. If you've ever tried using ChatGPT for a 360 or anything like that, you'll spend a lot of time kind of arguing back and forth with the chatbot, trying to get it to put things in the format that you want, trying to get it to use the right wording. And so it ends up being kind of a clunky interface, this chat, once you get into these very specific domain workflows. And so people have started to build these co-pilots, right? And these are tools like the slide that Elva showed around, we're marrying this human and artificial intelligence. It's the center of that Venn diagram of how can we use AI as a very specific tool that will augment the abilities of our expert humans, right? And I'm a firm believer that we're really never going to replace humans in coaching. It's such a human profession. People want to be talking to people. And so the question becomes, how can we introduce AI in a way that augments the coach, augments the assessment professional, helps them scale their work to more people without removing them entirely? And these co-pilots are kind of dedicated interfaces separate from the chat interface that make that possible. And kind of central to this idea of co-pilots is the idea of human in the loop, right? Where if you're asking ChatGPT to generate you a 360 report, there's not really human in the loop. You give it a bunch of context, you tell it to do something, it spits out a bunch of answers, and like maybe the loop is you tell it that it was wrong and you want it to do something different, and then it spits out the whole report again. The idea behind human in the loop is building these interfaces where at every step of the process, the AI, if it's unsure about something, it can ask you a question. If there are multiple options, it can surface those options. So if you're an expert, you can use your context to choose between several options. And so it results in a much better quality output with a fraction of the effort, because the AI is doing the effort of, in the example of qualitative 360s, combing through dozens of pages of interview notes, or even in the example of kind of survey 360s across an org, combing through all of those responses, hundreds and hundreds, and synthesizing those into interesting insights. But you as the coach or L&D professional or whoever's kind of putting this report together can make the decisions about, oh, this is an interesting insight because I know this context about my organization. So I'm a huge believer in human in the loop. I think it kind of is the best trade-off between the human expertise that you need to inject in a lot of these situations with the power and scalability that AI can give you.
Very good. And we will be testing you all on those terms later on. No, we won't.
I'm glad you remembered to record the meeting, Elva. I always forget.
Oh, yeah, I have. Yeah, I did, didn't I?
You did, yeah.
I did, yeah. Good. So I think we've got a few thoughts and fears from you, but just to summarize what you said in the, so some of you, actually some others who didn't who aren't on the call also completed the little mini survey I sent round. So what this is the range of current use, and I think probably fits with what we've heard today, which is there's just a few who are using it often or frequently, but most are either never or sometimes. So yeah, we're early doors. We're all early doors with this. And in terms of 360, you're pretty well thinking you're using 360 processes effectively right now. But what we're talking about is like new processes, right? So all of you are looking to innovate and looking at how we might expand the impact and scalability of 360 actually is the words that you're using. and you're fairly likely to adopt. So I think there's a sort of hesitation. Of course, there should be. Let's see what happens and see what it's like. But there's an openness to adopting some sort of generative AI powered something. But what that is, we don't know. Specific things that we asked for your input on are all listed here. And as you can see, there wasn't any real clear winner, as it were, but the summarising of reports was top alongside summarising aggregated reports. So it's that, looking at a whole set of data and then coming up with conclusion from that makes sense, because that's a really difficult job to do for a human, although we do form conclusions, and certainly I spend a lot of my time doing aggregated summaries. Creating personalized development plans is up there also. That's taking the 360 to the next stage of, so what? This is the data, but what do I do about it? I'm really excited about that idea, because I think we can give people some ideas, suggestions that they can then run with. I was asking for strategic ideas, and it came up with, I got given like 5 strategic ideas. I liked 2 of them, but I wouldn't have thought of those 2, and the other 3 I didn't like. But those 2 I wouldn't have thought of on my own. So it can generate ideas, and be more helpful than a static situation can be. Analysis of language and open text, that's what we're talking about. What we're looking at. AI-driven nudges to encourage the quality of feedback itself. Now, this is an interesting idea we'd like to explore, and this is looking at the survey process, or the automated interview process, if you think of it that way. Can we have a more dynamic process where, if people have got something to say, or that they may have given a 2 out of 5 on a particular behavior, like they don't listen that well, can they be nudged in a live, online, real-time way to provide even more information? With that specific elaboration of feedback is the absolute gold dust in 360 reports. So can we do more to get more of that if it's there? Not to be insistent upon it, but helpful, do elaborate on that further, or something, some sort of thing like that we can't really do so easily right now. Cultural review, so that's overview across the whole organization. The administration of 360 we haven't mentioned specifically, but that it's hard to administer. There's so many people's reviews go into one report, and tracking them and catching that last one, and have we got enough, and all of that. So can we do more to automate that, and in a clever way, I wonder. Dynamic questioning of the survey. Maybe if ratings are lowish in one area, people get literally asked more questions on that, or maybe the other way around. So that's the whole survey process. Interpretation of a personal 360. That's another way of asking about summarizing, which is interesting, because it didn't get as many votes, because it started with the word AI generated. So that's interesting. Executive summary. So there's the concept of, here's your full report. This is yours as an individual, but actually we're going to provide a summary for the talent board, or the senior leader, or your coach, or something. So there could be different sort of summaries available reasonably easily, I think. Training needs analysis, either across a department, across a team, or across the whole. A more facility to personalize the surveys. We do that now, but it can be different and more complex. Sentiment and emotion analysis. No, not just what have they actually said, but actually how are they saying it? How are these people feeling about you? And really, because that may not be obvious. So can we do something to clarify that? Bias detection reporting and bias detection red flags, they're both at the bottom there. Bias is an interesting one. You might think that AI generated data and summaries might be free of bias, but I know there's also a risk that it's just perpetuating current bias. So there's different angles on bias. There's with the issue of bias there. We just need to be very mindful of that. But certainly we can do more to automate what if we spot some patterns of bias coming up, and we've been doing more of this with some clever statistics recently to show up where it takes quite a lot of data to allow it to show up, but where there's individuals who are consistently rating women lower than men, for instance, it's like, so what's that about? So the red flags can be useful. AI-powered coaching itself didn't get many votes here, but actually the main cost, I think, for delivering 360s is actually, it's not in the survey per se, from what I can see anyway. It's the people side of the process, which is more costly, the support with the debriefing and the follow-up coaching. Can we do more to accelerate the coaching that we do, to maybe do more pre-work with people, or post work, or in between work, to just leverage the coaching so that you get, twice the result or twice the impact for the same amount of human time? We're faced with the request from a particular body that's in the news a lot at the moment, that suddenly had funding pulled from Gaza, and they're asking for us to do coaching pro bono. It's like, well, what can we do? But what can we do really, really cheaply, actually, is the question. How can we get the same result for less? So these were the sort of things you guys flagged as being interesting, that you might want to see. So if we can get any further clarity on that today, that would be great. Some of your concerns were flagged. A common concern was the accuracy of the data, that is provided by any AI-powered anything. That was definitely flagged up often. And yeah, is there something to say about that, Matt? Do you want to comment about accuracy?
Yeah, this is a great question, and kind of a really top of mind concern for us. And it's a big risk with some of these more general AI systems. Like, I'm sure all of you have experienced, if you've played around with ChatGPT at all, that occasionally it will say something that sounds really confident, but is just totally made
wrong.
up BS. Yeah. And so, especially in these situations where it's really important that we get things right, and it's really important that the data is represented fairly, there are techniques that we can use to make sure that the data that we're pulling out for the AI is directly grounded in the feedback that's given. And a term that's thrown around there often is a retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. It's kind of an advanced AI term. Basically, what that means is before we start generating with the AI, we search the data that we've been given, and everything that we generate with the AI points back to a specific data point. And you can use that to kind of validate the accuracy of what the AI is putting out. So I'll show a little bit of that when I demo our product a little bit. But an example is if you're pulling out a quote that supports a particular theme in a 360, you want to be able to verify that that quote actually exists somewhere in the input data, because sometimes ChatGPT will make up quotes that no one said. But if you use this technique, you can verify that this stuff does in fact exist in the input data, and kind of look at where it came from.
So basically, we need to be very mindful of this issue, and
yes.
and position what's generated either as just suggestion or as verified, as you say. Yeah, really
Absolutely.
important. What about cost? Anything to say about cost, Matt?
Yeah, cost is an interesting one, and I think the cost of this technology is coming down really rapidly. I think it depends on how it's used and in what context. And to your point, I think the majority of the cost in most of these processes is the human expert time, right? So the question is, where can we reduce the time that the human experts are spending on things that they shouldn't be spending their time on, like combing through hundreds of survey responses or dozens of pages of interview notes, but kind of keep them in the places where they should be, where it's valuable to have that human expert time. Or if you're really trying to scale things, like where can we get the 80% value for 20% of the cost by automating smartly? So I think the cost on the AI systems themselves is coming down really quickly. And already you're seeing the most advanced AI systems today are a little bit less expensive than the like much worse versions were a year or two ago. So that trend's going to continue. But it's really about where can we augment and where do we replace the human effort that's going into these.
Yeah. Anything else further to say about bias? I know I talked briefly about it.
No, I think it's a really good point. The AI system is going to reflect the human bias that's in your data unless you approach it intelligently. And I'm pretty optimistic about this, where by default, the AI will reflect the bias, but with pretty simple tricks, like you can ask the AI, hey, can you point out any parts of this feedback that might be biased? And it actually does a pretty good job of saying like, oh, you're right. Like here are a couple places where you should pay attention. And that's one area where I think it's important to have human in the loop, where the AI can kind of identify, point out potential sources of bias, and then someone who's hopefully been trained on bias identification and delivering this type of feedback can go through and say, no, that one's okay, but actually this one is a flag. I'm not going to include that feedback, etc.
Yes. Very good, very good. The only other concern noted by the people who completed the survey was about how are the participants going to feel, and that's really important for us to note and think about, and try. And I think it could be that there's more comfort than we imagine. I mean, a bit like in 1999 when people were actually. The concern was people aren't going to be honest online. The reality was they were more honest online than they ever were on paper. So it might be that the participants love the fact that there's some contribution, but they're not actually talking to somebody necessarily. So we need to be mindful of all these things. Do you want to talk through some of these things? Anything we haven't covered?
I feel like we've talked about a lot of these points. This is kind of a recap of kind of my perspective on this, and it seems like Elva, you're aligned on kind of where AI fits into this process and where the human value still exists there.
Exactly. Yes. So, but it can be supremely clever at spotting patterns that we as human beings, no matter how good and analytical you are and how good a statistician you are, you're just not going to see them. So it is quite extraordinary what is
Absolutely
possible.
And I think one of the things that a lot of people underestimate is just the ability of AI to not get bored looking at so much data is really powerful. Like it will read 100 pages of interview notes or look through 1,000 survey responses, and it will look at every single one. It's not going to start skimming or like give up halfway through. And like no matter how diligent you are as a person, there are limits to focus and attention. Having these AI systems be able to take the brunt of that is pretty powerful.
And it is learning, so it's open to feedback, isn't it? This is the thing where a human was like, no, I don't want you to tell me I've done it wrong again. You can just keep going. You just keep going until it's right. So that's what we can do when we are trying something new. We can keep going until we get it right. No problem at all. There's an instant speed is amazing. I think the opportunity to personalize the whole experience, coaching prompts, the reviewers prompting, all of this is really the opportunity. It can support real-time it can be predictive as well. We can go down that line of thinking. So there's some possibilities there. I think we should have your demo, Matt. I can't find the here. Oh yeah, so this is just heading towards the demo here. So this is an example set of pages of open text commentary of this is some just pages we've taken out of our own examples and changed to various languages, I think. So this is the sort of thing that a participant is faced with. They might need to read these pages. They might end up with only 3, not necessarily 5 pages, but they might end up with 5. Some people can write a lot in these things. And they will read them, or will they? You see, I don't even think they always read them. Often they might skim them. If they come across one that's upset them, they'll get upset and then probably not really see the rest of them. So there's all sorts of things that go on emotionally, and also there's a bit of a data overload. So that's what we're faced with 316 now. But this is really useful stuff. So how can we make that more accessible? So that's the sort of thing that could be output as a result of some sort of AI generated process. And do you want to? Shall I stop sharing, Matt, and you demo for us?
Yeah, I can share my screen, and this is kind of a high level view of kind of what we're trying to do at Encore is how do we take this data overload of pages and pages of text feedback that's either going directly to the recipient of the feedback and can be kind of a lot to take in and kind of hard to get to the core of what's the theme of the feedback, what should I be doing
really going
based on
here?
this.
Yeah.
Or in the cases where we work with coaches and folks that are doing these interview-based 360s, you have probably 10 times that much text data coming from the interview notes that you need to somehow bring in and summarize into something salient to deliver to the client. So let me share my screen.
While you're just doing that, any questions from anyone so far?
Great. Is my screen sharing here?
Yeah.
Amazing. So this is the Encore app, and I'll show just a brief demo of what the workflow looks like here. And like Alva mentioned, so far we've mostly been working on these interview-based 360s with coaches. And so this is an example of notes from one interview. You might have anywhere from 8 to 20 of these interviews. I think the biggest one we did was 40 respondents, and that was upwards of 100 pages of notes, which was a pretty monster 360. But you could easily imagine these also being kind of the qualitative open response feedback that comes out of a survey. We do have a simple survey tool built in here, and to the point where people were asking about, can we get AI to prompt for better feedback in these surveys? One of the things that we're thinking about on the open response side is having the AI ask follow-up questions. Right now, our AI will kind of build a model of the person who's receiving feedback as it's getting the feedback from different surveys. So if I say one thing about Olivia's communication and Elva says something totally different, the AI will know to, next time someone's being asked that question, kind of dig in, go off the rails a little bit, ask more questions there to get to the truth of it. And since people mentioned that they use psychometrics, I'm also going to upload, I have this Hogan Flash Report PDF, and I'll upload that alongside my 360 feedback data. So one of the strengths of the AI is it's able not only to look at the themes from the feedback respondents, it's able to integrate these other data sources like psychometrics and create these really powerful insights based on both the qualitative feedback as well as the personality attributes. So here's kind of a sample of the report that we're outputting. We have these top level sections that we're looking for themes around. So by default, we have strengths and opportunities for development. Under each of those, we're going to have the AI help us pull out themes from the text data. We'll be looking for direct quotes that support those themes. And then we'll generate these summaries that give a little bit more color, tie the report together. And if you have that psychometric personality data, we'll also pull out the relevant attributes to that qualitative feedback theme and generate a little bit of analysis. If you've used Hogan, you know it can be kind of notoriously difficult to piece apart, especially for the person who's receiving the feedback. So our AI, we've trained with a bunch of Hogan experts to be able to interpret those scores in the context of the direct feedback that you're getting. So I'll hit next, and this is really where the magic's happening. So the AI is going out, it's reading through all of that text feedback, all of those open response answers or interview notes, and it's looking for themes that come up across all of the responses that you've gotten. And it will categorize that around whatever categories you put in. And you can add custom categories as well. If you wanted to dig in specifically on leadership style, if you had a particular competency model for your organization that you wanted to base the feedback around, you can do that instead of strengths and opportunities. And this process takes a minute or two, depending on how much text data you have. With our 40 interview one, it took probably 4 or 5 minutes. But so you can
Matt,
see here we've pulled up.
Can I just ask? Can you
Please.
design your own report to look the way you want it, or is it just standard looking?
Yeah, so we do for kind of team clients and larger organizations, we do custom branded reports. So you can have your logo on it, you can have it structured however you like, brand colors, etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, what I showed on that prior screen was kind of our unbranded, very simple version of this. But you can see, so we've pulled in a couple themes under strengths and opportunities for development. We have, we're not pulling these from a list of themes. This is really the AI coming up from scratch with what are the most interesting things to talk about. And so you'll get very specific themes like expertise in the medical field that probably wouldn't come up if you were just using kind of a general competency model. And over here in the center, you can see we've gone out and we've found direct quotes from that feedback that are supporting evidence for this theme. So instead of getting this dump of all of the text of everyone's responses, you're getting these really salient quotes tied into this overarching theme. And when we're talking about accuracy, this is kind of what I was mentioning earlier. If you hover over one of these quotes, we're showing it in the context of the interview note or the survey response that it came from, highlighted over here. So you can be absolutely certain that this quote isn't made up, it exists in the data, and it also gives you a little bit more context as you're putting this together of kind of what came before and after in the conversation, what is it referring to? If I want to pull in more of this, I can just go over and highlight. And that's part of that human in the loop aspect as well, where you can use your judgment of what part of this quote do I want to include in the feedback. I'm just going to go fly through and select a couple quotes for each of these. I'm going to delete that theme. And then generate the report. It'll pop us back into that template. So the quotes that we've selected under those themes, and then we'll generate these little narrative summaries. So this is just a much more focused view on how are we interpreting that qualitative feedback data, as opposed to just dumping all of the responses and kind of having the person who's receiving it interpret it themselves. You can see we've also pulled out these Hogan attributes that are relevant. So for this expertise in the medical field, we've pulled out high scores in inquisitive and in science, generated interpretations for those as well. And this is all editable too. If you want to frame the feedback differently, you can edit the summaries. If I want the tone to be more gentle or more direct, shorter, longer, this is kind of abstracting away some of the complexity of prompt engineering if you're chatting with these models into very specific interface for going through this process. And I could add something like add a list of action items.
Perhaps you could have a English polite tone.
Exactly. So you could type that in here. You could say like talk in a polite kind of British English.
Yeah, talk in British, not really talking straight to the point.
Yep. But that's the idea. I did demo this for a group of Australian coaches a couple of weeks ago, and they asked me to put in talk in an Australian accent, and came out pretty funny. I'm glad they weren't offended, but
very good. And who's using the tool at the minute, Matt?
Yeah, so we're working with a lot of coaching groups, specifically large leadership development firms. Our biggest customer right now is Heidrick and Struggles, the search firm. So they have a bench of 300 or so coaches that do these interview-based 360s regularly.
And how they're liking it?
They're liking it a lot. So the quotes, we have some very good testimonial quotes from them, but the stat that we're most proud of is on average of the people who we've polled who have been using it at Heidrick say it's saving between 2/3 and 3/4 of the time that they used to spend on doing this manually.
Right.
So easily someone would spend 9+ hours going through one of these reports, and we're cutting that down to 3 today, and hopefully even more going forward in the future. So, and it is the part of the job that these people like to do the least, is combing through all of these interview notes. People want to be spending their time on one, thinking about the high level insights that they can bring to the table based on the context that they have, and then going and delivering the feedback, doing the coaching around it, doing the actual development work. But having the AI take away the drudgery of the note parsing and the kind of low level analysis. It's just a quality of life improver.
Any questions for Matt?
Not a question, but an observation, which is, I mean, I just think that tool is absolutely fantastic. But just the power that would give an organisation who didn't necessarily have the budget for a coach to take somebody through the 360 report, or even don't have particularly well-trained managers into how to help somebody support somebody with their 360 report. That tool would just absolutely do that, because it's going to be such a supportive part of the process to help that individual go through the report and pull out the key themes without any bias. I just think that is just fantastic, a real opportunity.
Thank you, Karen. That means a lot.
Tracy, you have a question.
You mean it, Tracy?
A comment and a question. Yeah, it looks great because so often, and it's hard not to do it as a coach, but the clients often they'll obsess about 1 or 2 comments, and the rest of the report just gets ignored or filtered. And I wonder whether this is not a question, I'm just thinking out loud. I wonder whether coaches might get a bit lazy. And I wonder whether part of me processing and reading and trying to consolidate it and look for themes myself helps me to engage and think about that person and the best coaching question. So I'm slightly concerned about it. My actual question I'll get to now is, if you ran that report again the example you just did for us, Matt, if you ran it again in a week's time, would the output look different because it's continually learning, or is it a very consistent kind of output?
Good question.
Yeah, so the system is getting better and kind of constantly changing. So the specifics of the wording, the particular quotes and themes that it will pick out will change over time as it gets smarter. Usually they'll get better. But I would say it's, especially on the theme finding, usually there's a fairly clear set of themes, at least around strengths and opportunities, that for a particular leader. And if you ask any coach to go read through this and pick out the top 3 or 5 themes in each of those categories, you'd land on the same things. And so the system's pretty consistent in terms of being able to pull out the same ideas around what are the top things, feedback this person needs to hear.
That's certainly been my experience as well, Tracy, when I've put data through as I'm experimenting, that it might not come up with exactly the same wordings or the exact same way of grouping, but the main points will all be there still, and I will agree with those. I've been doing things independently of it before I look at it in order to compare. That's what. So it's very interesting. yeah, I mean, and there is no right answer to a summary of this stuff.
No, and if you ask three different coaches to look, they'd all come up with like three slightly different themes.
So
anyway,
it's a bit like that. It's a bit like that. Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
And I actually really, Tracy, I love your point around being worried about feeling like you might get lazy around the details of these things. I can definitely feel it for myself. I'm a software engineer. I use AI for coding a lot, and I can feel myself like I'm not paying quite as close attention to the code that I'm writing when I'm using AI. So I have to force myself to go read through everything and make sure it's not
isn't it,
being
Matt?
crazy.
It's another level of
It is,
discipline.
but I think it's also part of how we have to build these tools to kind of encourage the ability to really go through everything, make sure you have a mastery of the data. And I kind of flew through my demo there, but it's something that we think about a lot. And we have a lot of tools within the product to be able to get an understanding of what the data and the feedback is as you're preparing the report. Because a lot of, like, if you're a coach and you're delivering this, you need to be able to come to the debrief meeting and be able to speak confidently to the feedback that you've gotten. It can't just be ChatGPT generated and you don't know what you're talking about, right?
It doesn't take you out of it completely. No, you have to you have to make sure you're still in it. Definitely.
Well, yeah, because otherwise you might as well just sit in front of an AI coach as well.
Yeah, which is another option, but a different option. Yes, it's a different option. Well, so any other questions for Matt? I wonder if it might be worth us all putting down if we use the chat function, that's probably the best way of doing this. How about if we now just have a think about your world of 360 and the way you've been using 360. I wonder what the best question to ask is. Where would you want to start, actually? Where might you start introducing generative AI into your world of 360s? Why don't you have a little think and put your ideas in the chat? Let's see, you might be all be in completely different places. And as we can see, there's a large number of places to start. Where would you start?
Oops. Sorry, I hit return before I finished typing. All interesting stuff. Goodness me. Yes. Heather's still typing away.
So there seems to be a common thread of the development end of the process, development plans, summaries linking to development opportunities. Yes, I was looking at LinkedIn Learning, for instance, because in our generic 360s, maybe we could link people directly to learning modules available generically, but you might have your own sources of training that you curate or manage. Yes, the differences in feedback according to different categories of raters. I meant to ask that, Matt. How do you differentiate between the reviewers? Because we do when we are interpreting them.
Yeah, so that's something that I skipped over in the interest of time, but we have a couple views on the data where basically we're trying to make this qualitative, unstructured data a little bit more quantitative and grounded. And so we have this kind of heat map view where you can look at each theme, look at each category of rater and say, okay, how many times was this theme mentioned by direct reports in their open responses? Or how many times was this theme mentioned by bosses or peers? And so you can get a good sense of the distribution of who's saying what.
Yes. So in addition to that, there was a call that was stellar, I think, wasn't it? Tell us what you would like to see happen with your prompting.
Well, we have an issue where somebody could mark somebody low, and at the minute, everybody can obviously put a comment in, but even if they don't and they've marked it low, they can still move on.
Yes.
So the ideal would be that there's some other questions to help them give the feedback, so just to make sure that the feedback is useful. So maybe just general stuff, maybe sort of like, is it specific, was there a particular time or something like that could potentially just help them
gently
formulate.
Nudging them to say more, say more about that.
So what do you mean by that? And so just to sort of like maybe do a bit of coaching,
understand or something. Yes.
It's a very fine line, and we've been playing around with this exact idea where people tend to get annoyed at the AI asking them for more information unless there's like a really good point to it. So we've been playing around with different framings on how to ask the follow-up questions so that people don't get annoyed at us.
Yeah, that's a good point, Matt, actually, because so now we prompt for a comment. So if somebody gives a low score, then they're prompted to give a comment. And after a little while, some of the feedback we've had is people get fed up with being prompted for comments, so they change the score so that they stop getting prompted.
Stop prompting me.
Yeah, so you're absolutely right. There's a balance to be struck.
And I like the points about the nuancing of the data. I think that was you, Steve, wasn't it? I mean, for when I'm doing a 360 feedback, I'm looking for what's the deep-seated question that this person is, that if we were to explore with this person would make all the difference. And it won't be obvious from the languages, it'll be what's in common with all of this, it'll be hidden, it won't be visible, it won't be very visible. And I guess for me, I don't know if we can train our models well enough to be that clever, but it would be interesting if we could. Be really interesting. Like, you seem to have, it's as if you have a problem with authority. Is there a problem with your father, or something? It's obviously you have to be a bit careful about that. Perhaps not, Joe. Steve, is that not what you were thinking, Steve?
That is a little more Freudian than I was going for.
Was it? Oh, right, okay, right. Yeah.
But I find it very revealing that that's where you went. No, I think one of the things that we sometimes struggle with is trying to talk about professional and career development as in a way that encompasses more than just, you talk about like what you might want to develop, or what's got you here is not what's going to get you to the next stage, or where do you feel strengths or weaknesses, and everybody assumes what you're going to give them then is a calendar of training courses, as if that means that'll fix it. And I guess so we spend a lot of time trying to talk to people about like that is maybe at best just a starting point for all the real learning and work you're going to have to do. And I guess I'm thinking about some other tools I've seen where there's a neat little thing at the end that says now you might want to participate in the following courses, and I think that's not how somebody really embeds the feedback. So I guess I was just sort of musing on like, maybe it could be as simple as like, go and talk to someone about this, or do you need to go back to your raters, or or do you need to see a psychoanalyst?
I guess if you're also linking to psychometrics, there's quite a lot of experiential development suggestions in amongst those. So I guess that you could have a menu of those to choose from instead of a training course, which would be slightly deeper.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
and one of
that's
these
a more
things
sensible way of putting it. Thank you.
One of the things that we're thinking about in terms of how do we use AI to bubble up the insights of the entire team or organization is, can we do these kinds of like conflict simulations, basically, where you have everyone's feedback, you have people's psychometrics, you're starting to get these like archetypes of people on the team. If you're in like a stressful product development situation, who on the team might end up in conflict? How might that arise? We've seen that to be really powerful for people to see like, oh, I do get in fights with people a lot on this very specific thing, and like it might be because of our different approaches in this way.
The way it can go. Matt, I was very interested in your point where people, when they get their report, might be able to directly chat with their report, ask questions about it, get guidance, etc. I love the idea of that. Say more about that.
Yeah, and just thinking about how, especially for some of these psychometric things, it can be kind of hard to understand how to interpret your Hogan scores, for example. And it's one step of the way there to try to have the AI generate a little bit of interpretation of how might this be showing up in the context of your 360. But I think the really interesting thing there is, can I ask follow-up questions of my report? Can I like keep coming back to my feedback as a baseline for what do I need to be working on? If I'm like really diligent about like trying to improve my communication, I might come back to my report, put in an email that I'm writing and say, hey, based on the feedback that I'm getting, is this like a step in the right direction, or should I be like thinking about this differently? And so you can start to think of the feedback as like an assistant coach, basically, that's helping you act on the feedback you're getting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm thinking, as you're talking, I'm thinking of the questions that a focus of a 360 might normally ask when you're going through their data with them. The sort of things they might ask might be, I don't understand why these people would think one thing and these other people think quite different on this specific behavior. Why would that be? And that's where you have the discussion with the coach. Maybe they can have question in that way. Why would this be different? That may be beyond scope, but
no, I think that's a great use case.
That's good. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
definitely what we're thinking.
And other questions might be things like, does this matter? They don't think I'm very good at listening or delegating, but does it matter? What? So what? My boss thinks I'm okay. I'm getting my, blah, blah. So it'd be interesting to be able to just immediately get some sort of feedback on that from somebody with no bias, like you say, really.
And AI can be a really good debate partner. So you can kind of pose it a hypothetical and say, like, I'm trying to get a promotion, like, if I really double down on this, but don't put as much work in here, like what you can kind of have those conversations with it.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because my idea was that I'm very excited about is for somehow to have some sort of a conversation with something or other, some AI, something or other, so that the individual pins down where they're going in their career or what they want to achieve this year, or some sort of future focused question like that you would start a coaching or debrief conversation with, clarify that, and then have the conversation around, okay, if you want promotion, then what am I going to have to do? What here's going to need to shift to have it. So to have the whole thing coached in an intention, not just this is your 360 data, but within a framework of what you want to achieve.
I like that a lot. Yeah,
because that's really that's when it becomes super useful. There's a question here from Tracy, and then we should finish off actually, because we've only got a couple of minutes, about team dynamics. Do you want to say something about team how you can use it to look at team dynamics, Matt?
Yeah, absolutely. Let me actually share my screen once more really quickly. I have a little design that might be interesting.
I guess this is the kind of thing, as an individual coach, it'd be almost impossible to try and do that. If you read 10, yeah. Well, not impossible, but hard to do.
Yeah, so what you're seeing on my screen right now are some of the designs that we're thinking through on how do we roll up these Team 360s into Team Dynamics, pulling in psychometric data, pulling in competency models. And the idea here is, okay, we've put in feedback about all of these different members on the team. Maybe we're starting to pull out some of those top strengths and growth areas, and building out this dashboard basically of, okay, here are some of the archetypes on your team. How might they be interacting? Where should the focus area as you're trying to build out your team, if you're trying to hire someone new, is like, should we be driving more in like the execute direction? So this is some of the stuff we're thinking about in terms of, can we put in 360 feedback or psychometric feedback across a whole team and roll that up into what the dynamics or focuses should be, maybe pulling out like specific risk areas, things like that.
When we do quite sophisticated stats on teams these days, Matt, which we haven't automated, but we can do this. It's quite it's quite involved process, but it can be very useful to spot trust issues between individuals as well, so you can really have particular relationship issues flagged up. So
and I think TI's dashboard that looks very similar on kind of the quantitative side from the survey responses is really great. And how can we bring those two things together on the quantitative and the qualitative side?
Exactly. There's a lot possible at the team level and organizational level for sure. Yeah,
absolutely.
Last few questions, and last few questions. Anything else from anybody else? Have we given you some food for thought? Very good, very good. Well, I mean, we would love to. Well, we are continuing this conversation. We have we've set up a technical playground to start our AI journey, as it were, formally. We're looking for clients to work with on this. So if any of you are interested in exploring further, then we'll have a conversation, go whatever speed you want to go at. We're almost creating a bit of an innovation hub here, and we can test ideas, have a go at things, and share how they go down with each other. So do let us know your level of interest in moving forward with us. We can simply just keep you updated, or you can be, we can be more sort of creative partners together, if you like. It's entirely up to you. So have a think, come have a chat with us. We'll certainly be talking with Matt, and we'll be moving forward our development. We'll be keeping you posted as to what's coming out of that. It's be very exciting.
And I'm happy if anyone ever has any random questions about AI, things that you should be thinking through in terms of different tools that you're using, or security, or just how these things work. Always happy to be a resource, and we'll share. Happy to share my email out, and feel free to reach out directly.
Fabulous. Well, thank you. Thank you so much for your time, really, everybody. Thank you for your interest.
Great to see you all.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Bye.
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 Oh, Karen's gone. Hi. I'm still here. Oh, Karen's calling.
That was great. Thank you for putting that together, Elva.
Thank you. We'll catch up another time. Yeah.
Sounds good.
Bye.
Have a great week. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.